Hey y'all, I'm Pam with 44 Marketplace. And if today's your first visit to my channel, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. Please take a minute to subscribe and click the bell so you'll be notified each time I upload a video. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up. And keep in mind, I try to put a material list in the comments below each one of the videos. If I missed something, please let me know. Okay, let's get started.
This morning's subject is hardware, and it's a question that comes up so often that it's hard to believe how often it comes up. So if you're doing a piece of furniture, there's always, do I keep the original hardware or do I replace it? First and foremost, if you're trying to do it as inexpensively as possible, please keep the original hardware. There's so many ways to update it, and a lot of times people don't realize that your original hardware in some cases is solid brass or something like that. So it's better made than the made in China hardware that you may be getting. Well, I know sometimes we need to update it. Other times we actually just need to update the original hardware. So if you've got a friend that has questions about hardware, please send them this. But today what we're going to talk about is both sides of it. If you've got hardware and you need to update it because you're trying to flip a piece of furniture on a dime, you're updating your own piece of furniture, you just want to keep the hardware original to the piece, or should we go out and get new hardware? All right, so I'm sure all of you guys have a box of hardware like I do if you do this. And I don't get rid of it because even though it may not be what I want on the piece anymore, if you feel this hardware, this is nice, well-made, heavy-duty hardware, which is nicer than what I can get from most places nowadays. So a lot of times I do keep the original hardware. Now, I know a lot of you guys, when you are painting a piece of furniture, you paint hardware, furniture, and all, and see, that's just really not me. Because if I'm updating a piece of furniture, I like my hardware off, except in the case of hidden hinges or if I'm doing a blend or something like that. But let's say you have a piece of hardware that is similar to this that you're not really sure what you're going to do with. Well, the first thing you're going to want to do, if you want to change the color, then, or even if you don't, if you want to clean it well, there's a lot of ways to clean your hardware. Ketchup, a lot of people don't realize, but ketchup is a great way to clean your hardware. Now, there's a million different ways, and if you look on the boards, they always get hit up so many times. But ketchup, boiling it with baking soda, there's so many ways to do it. Either way you do it, you want to make sure you get your hardware nice and clean. If you've got inexpensive hardware, especially Depression era hardware, if you boil it, it will rust on you sometimes. And typically on those kinds, what I do is I like to put WD-40 over the top of them because that gets rid of the rust. But once you've gotten it clean, and now we're ready to update it. If you've got a nice heavy piece like this, and this actually has a real pretty escutcheon that goes behind it. If you've got a piece like this and you're wanting to update it, you've got several ways you can do it. First, a good old can of spray paint. I know a lot of people associate me with Dixie Belle and Dixie Belle products, but I use whatever works best. In most cases, it is Dixie Belle, but if you want a quick update, you can just spray it with a good old can of spray paint. I looked all over my shops and I can't find a can of spray paint because I use a paint sprayer for Dixie Belle or whatever, but a spray can works. Now, sometimes it doesn't work long term, and that's usually related to whatever you're spraying or whether or not you got your piece clean. Because regardless of what you do to it, if you don't get your piece clean, nothing's going to stick to it. All right, so now we've talked about spray paint, which is always a good option if that's what you're looking for. Look at my new cup my husband got me. I work hard to support my dog. All right, another thing that you can use is Modern Masters. Modern Masters makes great metallics. I don't know if you've ever tried them. I know you've heard me talk about them if you follow me, but I'm telling you right now, Modern Masters makes beautiful, beautiful, beautiful metallics. They do really well on hardware. I've used them on half of everything. Pewter is one of my favorites. And a lot of theirs comes in a shimmer, it comes in a matte, and it comes in a satin. So when you're talking about metallics to update your hardware, that's always an option to go with. And I want to say that Hobby Lobby now carries Modern Masters. So you can even use a coupon there, which again saves you some bucks. All right, another thing is Dixie Belle's new Moonshine Metallics. And I gotta tell you, I left my leaf over here so that you can see. If you're wanting something with some color and some great shimmer, Dixie Belle's Moonshine Metallics are not to be discounted at all because they work well. In fact, I pulled a piece off of one that I did. This one has been painted with Dixie Belle's Moonshine Metallics in Steel Magnolia. And you can see it has so much shimmer and shine. It really turned out well. Now, typically, if I'm going to brush hardware, most of the time, not if I'm going to spray it, but if I'm going to brush hardware, I use Dixie Belle Slick Stick. Now, you may choose not to, and that's okay, but I'm telling you what, this Slick Stick makes everything stick. So if you have any concerns about how slick your hardware is, if you are opting to update your hardware, definitely look into Dixie Belle Slick Stick. Basically, you put a coat on, whether you spray it on, whether you brush it on or whatever, you let it dry for an hour, put a second coat on, let it dry overnight, and it's amazing. Now, I can't, you know me, I don't follow rules, so I can't say that I put it on and leave it on for an hour and then a second coat. Most of the time on my hardware, I put one coat on, but as you can see, even with the Moonshine Metallics, this is 2 coats of metallics over 1 coat of Dixie Belle Slick Stick. It gives great coverage. It's a great way to do it. But there's also other options, and that's what I wanted to show you. Dixie Belle has a great line of gilding wax. And a lot of people don't realize just your finger and gilding wax, and you can make a huge difference in your hardware. And sometimes I use a combination of things. Sometimes I'll use something like this or a Dixie Belle paint, and you know, they have 69 colors. So it's not like you can't find a color to use. But then I'll put that, and then I use one of these beauties right here, and I wipe it on just to highlight the details. So you can either use Dixie Belle's gilding wax, which comes in green patina, comes in sterling silver, black, gold, bronze, hammered copper, Anastasia, and turquoise teal. You can use all of those on your hardware or in conjunction with Dixie Belle paint. Again, typically most people are more comfortable starting their hardware with Slick Stick and then going forward with it. Now, am I telling you that Slick Stick is necessary? Absolutely not. Because if you know me, I don't use a lot of Slick Stick. I might I'll clean it good with White Lightning or something like that. But a lot of times I boil my hardware. Because if I boil my hardware, it gets rid of all of the top coat that's on there. And in some cases, that's worn through in places anyway. And then I do whatever I'm going to do. But last but not least, you know I love to rust half of everything. Another option is Dixie Belle's patina paints. And these are my patina samples. A lot of times I'm loving me some rust hardware. Dixie Belle's iron paint, well, this is copper and then this is bronze. Dixie Belle has great paint. Their patina paints stand alone, but you can also use a reactive solution on them to create the not the illusion. You're not creating a faux finish, to actually create an aged finish. So that's always an option. So you definitely want to keep in mind what you can do and what you can't do. And really, I don't like to be told you can't do it, because if I'm told that, typically I have to do it and then videotape it. All right, so if you've got old hardware, you can do all of those things to update your hardware. I mean, there's so many options out there that I don't think people realize how easy it is to update your old hardware. But in the case that you decide that you want to change out your hardware, there's so many places that you can get it. Usually my go-to is D. Lawless Hardware, because as far as pricing and selection, I haven't found anybody better. But in some cases, like something like this, you're wanting to match it, always go on eBay. There's so many people on eBay that sell vintage hardware that you can get it. There's also Facebook groups that have vintage hardware. So there's so many places that you can get the hardware that you need. And a lot of times it works out, and sometimes you can just get other vintage hardware to replace all of your pieces. So that's another option. Also keep in mind, if you don't measure your spread on your hardware, that sometimes you can get the wrong size. If you do get the wrong size, then you need to fill your holes and sand and all that, but that's a whole nother video because we're gonna actually do a how-to video on getting a smooth area. All right, so as you can see, if you have old hardware, even if you don't think you're gonna use it on your piece, sometimes it's best to hold on to it because you may be able to either sell it on eBay and make a few bucks, or you can always use it on another piece, but you can use Modern Masters to update it. You can use Dixie Belle's Moonshine Metallics to update it, a good can of spray paint if you're so inclined, and Dixie Belle's patina paints are always a good option. And don't forget these. These are always great Dixie Belle gilding waxes, and there's also a product out there called Rub and Buff that I think's probably been around for 40 years, and it's always an option. And the difference between Dixie Belle's gilding wax and Rub and Buff is Rub and Buff, if you don't wear a glove when you apply it, you'll be wearing it on your skin until the top layer of your skin wears off. Versus Dixie Belle's gilding wax, that usually doesn't happen. Typically, even if I don't wear gloves, I can use some scrubby soap and clean my hands up right away. So I hope that helps you, and I hope if you have a question about updating hardware, you can just hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And if you don't follow me, I am on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we are spraying. I know a lot of people have had a lot of questions about sprayers, and I'm going to show you different sprayers. I'm going to show you how much overspray they take. I'm going to show you the setup. I'm going to go over it all, and we're going to even try to spray a piece of furniture this weekend. So I hope you follow me, and I will see you at 9 p.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy Thursday.